Eric Jones, a 60-year-old black man, stepped out of his sleek black car, his heart still warm from the charity event he had just attended. The cool night air brushed against his face as he walked up the path to his beautiful home. A gentle smile tugged at his lips, his mind filled with the grateful faces of those he had helped that evening. What a blessing, Eric murmured to himself, adjusting his tie. He had worked tirelessly for everything he owned, but nothing brought him more joy than giving back to his community. As he stepped into his spacious living room, Eric's eyes landed on a framed picture of his grandson, Marcus. The boy's bright smile and eager eyes filled Eric with pride. Marcus had just been accepted into an Ivy League university, a dream come true for the entire family. Eric sank into his favorite armchair, his thoughts drifting to the luxury watch he planned to buy for Marcus. It would be the perfect gift to celebrate such a monumental achievement. He could already picture the joy on Marcus's face when he opened the box. That boy deserves the world, Eric said softly, his heart swelling with love. Surrounded by the fruits of his hard work, Eric couldn't help but reflect on his journey. He had started with nothing, facing countless obstacles and prejudice along the way, but he had never given up. Driven by a deep desire to build a better life for his family and his community, Eric had overcome every challenge. Now, as a successful entrepreneur, he used his resources to lift others up. He believed in the power of education and opportunity, just like the ones Marcus was about to experience at the university. Tears welled in Eric's eyes as he thought about how far they had come, from the struggles of his youth to the triumphs of today. Every step had been worth it, and now, watching Marcus reach for the stars, Eric felt a sense of fulfillment that no amount of personal success could ever match. With renewed energy, Eric rose from his chair and headed to his office. He had some research to do. Only the finest luxury watch would do for his grandson, a symbol of the bright future that awaited him and the unwavering support of his family. Sitting at his desk, Eric's heart brimmed with gratitude and excitement. Tomorrow would bring a new day, another chance to make a difference, and the opportunity to find the perfect gift for Marcus. The soft glow of the computer screen lit up Eric's face as he scrolled through page after page of luxury watches. Though his eyes were tired, his determination never wavered. Throughout the night, he searched, driven by the desire to find the watch that was just right for Marcus. It has to be perfect, Eric murmured, rubbing his eyes. Finally, he closed his laptop. He hadn't found exactly what he was looking for, but he had a few ideas. A brief night's rest and a hot cup of tea later, he felt ready to take on the day. That afternoon, Eric attended another charity event, his heart swelling with joy as he shook hands and spoke with members of the community. Their gratitude and hope fueled his own sense of purpose. As the event came to a close, Eric glanced at his watch. There was still time to visit that luxury watch shop he had been thinking about. "I think I'll head to Timeless Treasures," he told his assistant. "It's time to find the perfect gift for Marcus." The drive to the prestigious watch shop was short. Eric parked his car and took a deep breath, excitement bubbling in his chest. He stepped into the store, the soft chime of the door announcing his arrival. Still dressed in his casual clothes from the charity event, a simple polo shirt and khaki pants, Eric was immediately enveloped by the atmosphere of luxury and refinement. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling, casting a warm glow over glass cases filled with gleaming watches. The air was thick with the scent of leather and polished wood, and soft classical music played faintly in the background, almost drowned out by the hushed conversations of well-dressed customers. Eric's eyes swept the store, taking in the opulent surroundings. He couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between his casual attire and the tailored suits and designer dresses worn by the other customers. For a brief moment, a pang of self-consciousness flickered in his chest. A group of nearby patrons glanced in his direction, their eyes lingering a little too long on his casual clothes. Eric straightened his shoulders, reminding himself of who he was and why he had come. He might not be dressed like the typical customer here, but he had every right to be. Taking a deep breath, he approached one of the gleaming display cases. The watches inside were masterpieces, each more intricate and stunning than the last. The price tags, discreetly tucked beside each watch, held figures that would make most people wince. As Eric leaned in to take a closer look, he could feel curious eyes on his back, almost hearing the unspoken questions hanging in the air. What was a man dressed like him doing in a place like this? But Eric refused to let their judgments affect him. He stood tall, focused on the task at hand. He was here for Marcus, to continue a cherished family tradition. No amount of uncomfortable stares or raised eyebrows could diminish the love and pride he felt for his grandson. With renewed determination, Eric continued browsing the displays. He might have felt a little out of place, but his confidence never wavered. He knew that somewhere in this intimidating store was the perfect watch for Marcus, and he was determined to find it. As he moved from one display to the next, the store's staff took note of his presence. Their eyes darted between his casual attire and the luxurious watches he was examining. Whispers began circulating among the employees, accompanied by raised eyebrows and subtle nods. "Look at him," one staff member murmured to another, hiding behind a perfectly manicured hand. "He's clearly in the wrong place." Another employee sniffed disdainfully. "Probably just window shopping. Like he could afford anything here." The manager, a tall woman in an impeccable suit, pursed her lips as she watched Eric from across the room. She gestured to one of the junior staff. "Keep an eye on that one," she said quietly. "We don't want any incidents." As Eric approached a particularly impressive display of watches, a young salesperson reluctantly made his way over. The forced smile on his face barely concealed his disdain. "May I help you with something?" the salesperson asked, his tone suggesting he'd rather be doing anything else. Eric, oblivious to the staff's attitude, smiled warmly. "Yes, please. I'm looking for a special watch for my grandson. He was just accepted into an Ivy League university." The salesperson's eyes narrowed slightly, clearly doubting Eric's story. "I see," he replied coolly. "Well, these watches are quite expensive. Perhaps I could show you something more suitable." Eric's brow furrowed slightly at the condescending tone, but he remained polite. "Actually, I'd like to see that one," he said, pointing to a beautiful gold watch with a leather strap. The associate hesitated, glancing nervously at his manager. "Sir, that particular piece is quite valuable. Are you sure you wouldn't prefer to look at something else?" When Eric opened his mouth to respond, another staff member approached, whispering something to his colleague. Both cast doubtful glances in Eric's direction. The atmosphere in the store had shifted. Other customers were now watching the scene unfold, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed amusement. The staff continued exchanging knowing looks, their body language making it clear they believed Eric didn't belong in their prestigious establishment. Despite the rising tension, Eric remained calm and dignified. He took a deep breath, preparing himself to deal with the employee's behavior. Eric approached the display with a calm demeanor, his eyes fixed on the dazzling gold watch with intricate details. He pointed to it, his voice firm and polite. "I'd like to see that one, please." The staff exchanged knowing glances, their smiles barely hiding their judgment. The young salesperson hesitated before retrieving the watch, his movements slow and deliberate. "Are you sure, sir?" he asked, his tone laced with condescension. "This particular watch is quite exclusive." Eric nodded, keeping his composure. "Yes, I'm sure. It looks perfect for my grandson." With a dramatic sigh, the associate carefully removed the watch from the case and placed it on the counter. "This is a limited edition piece," he explained, his voice dripping with doubt. "It costs $25,000. Another staff member chimed in, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Perhaps we could show you something more affordable? We have some lovely options in our budget-friendly section." Eric's eyes narrowed slightly, but his tone remained steady. "Thank you, but I'm interested in this watch. May I take a closer look?" The first associate reluctantly slid the watch toward Eric, his reluctance obvious. "Of course, sir, but please be careful. It's very delicate." As Eric examined the watch, the staff continued their hushed conversation behind him. "Can you believe this?" one whispered. "He's probably just wasting our time," another added with a snicker. "I bet he's never seen that much money in his life." Eric pretended not to hear their comments, focusing instead on the beautiful craftsmanship of the watch. He turned it over in his hands, admiring the intricate details and superior quality. The manager approached, her false smile barely masking her impatience. "Sir, while we appreciate your interest, perhaps I could show you some of our more accessible options. We have some beautiful watches that might be more within your reach." Eric looked up, meeting the manager's gaze with quiet dignity. Despite the rudeness of the staff, he remained calm and composed, ready to handle their behavior. He took a deep breath, focusing on his purpose and the love that had brought him to this moment. He wasn't just buying a watch, he was honoring his grandson's bright future, and no amount of prejudice could take that away from him. As Eric faced the mounting hostility from the store staff, he kept his composure, determined to handle the situation with grace and dignity. "I appreciate your concern," Eric said calmly, addressing the manager. "But I'm quite interested in this particular watch. Could you tell me more about its features?" The manager's smile tightened, his patience clearly running thin. "Well, as I mentioned, sir, it's an exclusive piece. The craftsmanship is intricate, perhaps not something easily appreciated without a certain expertise. Eric nodded, unfazed. I see. And what about the movement? Is it automatic or quartz? The salesman rolled his eyes, barely hiding his disdain. It's automatic, of course. But sir, maybe we're moving a little too fast. These watches require a significant investment and proper care. Are you sure you understand what you're looking at? The sting of those words hit Eric hard, but he refused to let it show. He had faced discrimination before and knew how to navigate these moments with poise. Instead of reacting to the insult, he focused on the watch in his hands, admiring its undeniable craftsmanship. This really is a remarkable piece, he said, his voice steady. My grandson would treasure this for a lifetime. The staff exchanged exasperated glances, and one of them muttered under his breath, as if he could afford it. We're wasting our time here. Eric heard the remark but chose to ignore it. Gently, he placed the watch back on the counter and looked at the manager. I'd like to purchase this watch, please. The manager's fake smile faltered, replaced by a look of disbelief. Sir, I don't think you understand. This watch costs $25,000. Perhaps we should find something more in your price range. Eric felt a familiar ache in his chest, the heavy weight of prejudice he had carried for years. Yet he stood tall, his dignity intact. He knew he could buy the watch several times over, but that wasn't the point. The blatant discrimination he was facing was about much more than the price. Taking a deep breath, Eric readied himself to address their behavior, determined to turn this painful moment into a lesson. Inside, Eric's heart sank as he listened to the staff's dismissive comments. Despite his calm exterior, a storm of emotions churned within him, the pain all too familiar, reminding him of the countless times he had faced such prejudice throughout his life. I appreciate your concern, he repeated softly, his voice firm despite the turmoil he felt inside, but I'm still very much interested in this particular watch. It would mean a great deal to my grandson. The manager exchanged a glance with his colleagues, barely hiding his impatience. Sir, perhaps we should explore some other options. Have you considered our pre-owned section? We have some lovely pieces there that might be more suitable. Eric felt a sharp pang in his chest. The implication was clear. They didn't believe he belonged in their store, let alone that he could afford their products. He looked around the luxurious showroom, noticing how other customers were treated with respect and enthusiasm. I understand you have a pre-owned section, Eric replied, his tone still polite despite the hurt he felt. But I'm interested in buying a new watch as a special gift. Is there any reason you don't think this one would be appropriate? The staff shifted uncomfortably, their prejudice becoming more apparent with each passing moment. One cleared his throat and said, Well, sir, these watches require a certain lifestyle to truly appreciate. Perhaps something more practical would better suit your needs. Sadness washed over Eric. Here he was, a successful businessman who had worked hard all his life, being judged solely on his appearance. The anger bubbled inside him, not just for himself but for everyone who had ever faced such discrimination. He looked down at the watch in his hand, thinking of Marcus and how proud he was of his grandson's achievements. Eric had hoped this shopping experience would be joyful, filled with excitement for the future. Instead, it had become a painful reminder of the biases that still plagued the world. Taking another deep breath, Eric gently placed the watch back on the counter. He looked each staff member in the eye, his gaze steady, filled with a mixture of disappointment and resolve. The weight of the moment hung in the air as Eric prepared to address their behavior, determined to transform this painful situation into a chance for growth and understanding. Silently, Eric stepped away from the counter, his heart heavy with disappointment. He walked toward the exit, each step measured and deliberate. As he reached the door handle, he paused for a moment, taking a deep breath to steady himself. Stepping out onto the bustling sidewalk, Eric blinked against the bright afternoon sun. The noise of the city enveloped him, a stark contrast to the tense silence he had left behind in the store. As he walked down the busy street, Eric's mind replayed the painful encounter over and over. His thoughts turned to his long journey to success. He remembered the countless obstacles he had overcome, the late nights spent building his business from the ground up, and the unwavering determination that had carried him through it all. But here he was, decades later, still being judged by the color of his skin rather than the content of his character. The pain of the experience weighed heavily on his shoulders. Eric had faced discrimination before, but each instance hurt, reminding him that no amount of success could ever fully shield him from prejudice. As Eric walked down the bustling street, thoughts of his grandson Marcus filled his mind, and the weight of what he had just experienced lingered heavily on his shoulders. The idea that Marcus might one day face the same kind of treatment brought a deep ache to Eric's heart. Passing by a shop window, he caught a glimpse of his reflection. Staring back at him was a dignified, accomplished man, but to those blinded by prejudice, he was invisible. The harsh divide between who he truly was and how others perceived him struck him with painful clarity. Yet, despite the hurt, something stirred within him, a familiar resolve. Eric had always believed in meeting ignorance with grace, in being the change he wanted to see in the world. No matter how painful this encounter had been, it wouldn't shake the core of his character. He refused to allow bitterness to take root. Instead, he resolved to use this experience as fuel for his ongoing commitment to create a more just and compassionate world. He would continue to lead by example, treating everyone with kindness and respect, no matter how he was treated in return. That evening, Eric sought refuge in the warmth of a cozy restaurant nestled in the heart of the city. The soft glow from the lights inside promised a welcome escape from the bitterness of the day. As he entered, he saw his dear friend William Clark already seated at their usual table. William, rising with a broad smile, enveloped Eric in a warm embrace. "Eric, my friend. It's always a pleasure to see you," William greeted, his voice brimming with genuine affection. Eric returned the smile, feeling some of the day's tension ease. "William, the pleasure is mine," he replied as he took a seat across from his friend. The two men quickly fell into their usual rhythm of conversation, catching up on life's recent events. William, a well-known philanthropist, eagerly shared stories of his latest charitable endeavors, his eyes lighting up with the joy of making a positive impact on their community. Eric listened intently, nodding in encouragement and offering words of support. He felt a surge of pride for his friend, thinking back to the young man William had been when they first met all those years ago. As the meal progressed, their conversation flowed seamlessly from one topic to the next. When Eric spoke of Marcus, his face glowed with pride, especially as he shared the news of Marcus being accepted into an Ivy League university. William raised his glass in a toast to Marcus's success, and Eric, for the first time that day, felt a genuine smile spread across his face. Throughout the evening, Eric found himself relaxing, the warmth of friendship and good food soothing the rawness left by the day's earlier events. He laughed heartily at William's jokes and shared stories of his own, though he carefully avoided any mention of the painful encounter at the watch store. As the night wore on, Eric realized how deeply grateful he was for this friendship. In William's company, he felt seen and valued for who he truly was, a stark contrast to how he had been treated earlier. The awareness of this difference wasn't lost on him, but Eric chose to focus on the positive energy surrounding him in that moment, relishing in the solace that only genuine friendship could offer. As the evening wore on, William leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "Eric, I have an important meeting tomorrow morning, and I would be honored if you joined me," he said, his voice warm and inviting. Eric raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the invitation. "Oh, and what's this about, William?" he asked, curiosity piqued. A small, mysterious smile played on William's lips. "Let's just say it's something close to both of our hearts. Your wisdom and experience would be invaluable," he explained, sincerity evident in his tone. Eric felt a deep sense of warmth wash over him. The fact that William valued his input so highly touched him more than he could express. Without hesitation, he nodded. "Of course, I'd be happy to join you," he replied, his voice filled with genuine enthusiasm. William's face lit up with joy. "Wonderful. I'll pick you up at 9 o'clock sharp. Trust me, you won't regret it," he said, his excitement infectious. As they finished their meal, Eric found himself looking forward to the next day. The anticipation of accompanying William on this mysterious agenda lifted his spirits, pushing the unpleasant memories of the watch shop incident to the back of his mind. They said their goodbyes outside the restaurant, sharing another warm hug. As Eric watched William's car disappear into the night, he felt a growing sense of excitement. Whatever the following day held, he was grateful for the friendship that had brought this opportunity his way. That night, as Eric prepared for bed, his thoughts wandered to what might await him the next morning. He wondered what William had planned, but more than that, he felt touched by his friend's desire to include him. It was a reminder of the connections that truly mattered in life, the bonds that transcended superficial appearances and saw straight to the heart. The next morning, the luxury watch store was a flurry of activity. Employees rushed about, polishing glass cases and straightening their already immaculate uniforms. The air buzzed with anticipation as they prepared for a very special visitor. "I heard he's worth billions," one employee whispered excitedly to another. "And he's famous for his incredible philanthropy," added another, carefully aligning a row of gleaming watches. The store manager clapped his hands, drawing everyone's attention. "Listen up, everyone. William Clark will be here any minute. This is our chance to impress one of the most influential men in the country." Everything needs to be perfect. The staff nodded eagerly, their eyes bright with the prospect of serving such a distinguished client. They imagined the potential commissions and the bragging rights that would come with making a sale to William Clark. In their rush to prepare, none of them gave a second thought to the man they had so rudely dismissed the day before. Eric's encounter with them was far from their minds, overshadowed by the excitement of the imminent visit. Little did they know, Eric wasn't just a close friend of William Clark, he was his mentor and trusted advisor. The man they had judged so harshly based on his appearance was, in fact, deeply connected to the very person they were so eager to impress. As the employees made last-minute adjustments, they speculated about William Clark's tastes and what kind of watch he might be interested in buying. "I bet he'll go for the most expensive piece we have," one employee said confidently. "Of course he will," another agreed. "A man like that only deserves the best." As the minutes ticked by, the anticipation in the store grew. The staff stood at attention, ready to offer their most obsequious service to the philanthropist they so admired, completely unaware of the lesson in humility and respect that awaited them. William Clark and Eric walked into the store together, their easy camaraderie evident in their relaxed smiles and light-hearted banter. The bustling atmosphere of the store, once charged with excitement, suddenly froze. The employees' eyes widened in shock as they recognized Eric, the same man they had treated so poorly just the day before. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the soft ticking of countless luxury watches. The employees stood frozen, their faces a mixture of confusion and growing horror. Oblivious to the tension, William turned to Eric with a warm smile. "Well, my friend, let's take a look at that watch you were interested in." Eric nodded, his calm demeanor a sharp contrast to the panic spreading across the employees' faces. "Of course, William, it's right over here." As Eric led William to the display case, the staff exchanged frantic glances. The realization hit them hard. Eric wasn't just any customer. He was a longtime friend and mentor of the philanthropist they were so eager to impress. The store manager, his face pale, stepped forward with a forced smile. "Mr. Clark, welcome to our store. We are honored to have you here." William nodded politely, but his attention remained on Eric. "Eric, why don't you show me the watch you liked? I'm curious to see what caught your eye." As Eric began to describe the watch, the employees listened in stunned silence. They watched as William hung on Eric's every word, clearly valuing his opinion and expertise. The respect and admiration William displayed toward Eric were unmistakable. The gravity of their mistake began to sink in. The man they had judged so quickly was, in fact, a respected mentor to one of the most influential people in their world. The employees' previous arrogance evaporated like morning mist, replaced by a nervous energy that crackled in the air. They stood stiffly, their faces a blend of shame and panic as they realized the severity of their earlier behavior. The store manager, his voice trembling, stepped forward once more. "Mr. Jones, please accept our sincerest apologies for any misunderstanding yesterday. We would be honored to assist you today." Eric glanced at the manager calmly, his dignified demeanor unshaken. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice neither angry nor accusatory. The employees scrambled to make amends, tripping over themselves in their eagerness. One rushed to pull a plush chair for Eric, while another hurried to bring a tray of refreshments. A third employee, her hands trembling slightly, carefully retrieved the watch Eric had inquired about the day before. "Here is the watch you were interested in, sir," she said in a near whisper. "It's one of our finest pieces." William watched the scene unfold with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. Leaning closer to Eric, he spoke softly. "They seem very eager to please you. Have you been here before?" Eric nodded slightly but offered no further details. Instead, he turned his attention back to the watch, examining it with the same careful consideration he had shown the previous day. The employees hovered nearby, their earlier disdain replaced by nervous deference. They hung on Eric's every word, eagerly agreeing with his observations and praising his impeccable taste. "Mr. Jones, your eye for quality is flawless," one employee gushed, her face flushed with embarrassment as she recalled her condescending remarks from the day before. Another employee nodded in agreement, his voice trembling. "We would be delighted to offer you our VIP service, Mr. Jones, perhaps a private viewing room? Or would you prefer to see our most exclusive collection?" The store manager, sweat beading on his forehead, added, "Whatever you wish, Mr. Jones. Our entire stock is at your disposal." As the employees continued their frantic attempts to make amends, Eric remained calm and composed. He treated each of them with the same respect and kindness he had shown the day before, despite their previous mistreatment. Sensing the tension in the air, William leaned in closer to Eric, concern creasing his brow as he observed the staff's nervous behavior. "Eric, my friend," he said softly, "is everything all right? These people seem terribly on edge." Eric took a deep breath, his eyes meeting William's. In a voice calm yet tinged with sadness, he began to recount the events of the previous day. "Yesterday, I came here to buy a watch for Marcus," he explained, "but I wasn't dressed in my usual business attire." As Eric spoke, the employees' faces grew even paler. They stood frozen, their earlier eagerness replaced by expressions of horror and shame. "The moment I walked in," Eric continued, "I wasn't judged by the content of my character, but by the color of my skin and the clothes I wore." William's expression darkened as he listened, the weight of the situation settling over him. The employees shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet Eric's gaze. Eric described how he had been treated with disdain, how the staff had assumed he couldn't afford the watches and had directed him toward more affordable options. His voice remained steady, but the pain in his eyes was unmistakable. Eric's voice was calm, but the weight of his words hit with intensity. "They dismissed me," he began, his tone carrying the hurt of yesterday's events. "As if I was wasting their time. One even suggested I check out the used section." The store manager winced in shame, while one of the employees stifled a gasp. William's jaw clenched and his eyes burned with quiet fury, but Eric placed a gentle hand on his friend's arm, silently reminding him of the dignity he wished to uphold. "I left without making a scene," Eric continued, his voice steady but the pain unmistakable in his eyes. "But it hurt, William. It hurt to be judged so harshly based solely on my appearance." The room fell into a stunned silence, the employees visibly crushed under the weight of their actions. Tears welled in the eyes of the young woman who had brought out the watch, while the store manager looked as if he might be physically ill. William, his voice tight with barely contained anger, turned to the staff. "Is this true?" he asked, his tone low but loaded with unmistakable rage. "Is this how you treated my friend?" His face, usually warm, was now flushed with fury, his eyes burning with indignation. "I demand an explanation," he growled, his voice a quiet but deadly threat. "How dare you treat him this way?" The staff stood frozen, their faces pale with fear and shame. The store manager, a middle-aged man with graying hair, took a trembling step forward, clasping his hands tightly in front of him. "Mr. Clark, sir," he stammered, his voice shaking. "We have no excuse for our behavior. We were wrong, terribly wrong." The young woman, now sobbing openly, barely managed to speak through her tears. "I'm so sorry," she choked out, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "We made terrible assumptions. We judged Mr. Jones unfairly." Another employee, a young man with slicked back hair, stepped forward, his former arrogance completely dissolved into pure panic. "Please, sir," he pleaded, his voice desperate. "We know we made a grave mistake. We should never have treated anyone that way, especially not someone as distinguished as Mr. Jones." William's gaze swept across the group, his disappointment palpable. "Do you understand the gravity of your actions?" he asked, his voice rising slightly, frustration boiling beneath the surface. "Do you realize that your behavior contradicts everything this establishment should stand for?" The employees nodded vigorously, their eyes wide with fear, fully aware that their jobs hung in the balance. The store's reputation, meticulously built over years of serving high-end clientele, could be irreparably damaged by this single incident. The manager spoke again, his voice trembling. "Mr. Clark, Mr. Jones," he began, "we understand the seriousness of what we've done. We didn't just fail as employees, we failed as human beings. We're ready to face any consequences for our behavior." Eric, calm and unwavering, gently placed a hand on William's shoulder. "William," he said softly, "I think it's best we speak privately with the manager." He turned to the store manager, his eyes kind but firm. "Would that be all right with you?" The manager nodded quickly, relief flooding his face. "Of course, Mr. Jones. Please follow me to my office." As they walked toward the back of the store, Eric could feel the eyes of the other employees on them, the tension in the air thick. Yet Eric's composure seemed to have a calming effect on everyone around him. Once inside the manager's office, Eric took a seat across from the desk. William stood near the door, arms crossed, still visibly upset. The manager sat behind his desk, his hands tightly clasped in front of him, his knuckles white. Eric leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. "I want you to understand something," he began. "What happened yesterday wasn't just about me. It's part of a much larger issue that affects people every day." The manager nodded, his eyes downcast, clearly ashamed. "When you judge someone based on their appearance," Eric continued, "you're not just hurting that person. You're hurting your business, your reputation, and frankly yourself. William nodded in agreement, his anger softening as he listened to Eric's words. Think about it, Eric said, his tone taking on a teacher-like quality. How many potential customers have you turned away because of snap judgments? How much business have you lost because someone didn't feel welcome in your store? The manager's face paled as the realization hit him. Respect isn't something you reserve for certain people, Eric pressed on. It's something you give to everyone who walks through that door. And that's not just good ethics, it's good business. The store manager, his face etched with regret, leaned forward in his chair. Mr. Jones, Mr. Clark, he began, his voice trembling slightly. I can't express how deeply I regret what happened yesterday. It's unforgivable, and I take full responsibility for my staff's actions. Eric nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the manager's. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of the situation hanging heavily in the air. Eric's voice was calm, yet carried an undeniable weight as he spoke. They dismissed me, William. It was as if I was wasting their time. They even suggested I check the used section. The store manager's face twisted with embarrassment, and one of the staff members let out a muffled gasp. William's jaw clenched, his eyes blazing with anger, but Eric placed a gentle hand on his friend's arm, a silent reminder of the dignity with which he intended to handle the situation. I walked out without causing a scene, Eric continued. But it hurt, William. It hurt to be judged so harshly based solely on appearances. The silence that followed was heavy. The employees stood frozen, the weight of their actions suffocating them. Tears welled up in the eyes of the young woman who had presented Eric with the watch, while the manager looked visibly ill. With his voice tight and controlled, William turned to the staff. Is this true? Is this how you treated my friend? His face, usually warm and composed, burned with indignation. I demand an explanation, he said, his voice low but filled with unmistakable fury. How dare you treat him like this? The employees, pale with fear and shame, couldn't speak. The manager, a middle-aged man with gray hair, stepped forward, hands trembling. Mr. Clark, sir, he stammered, we have no excuse for our behavior. We were wrong, terribly wrong. A young woman, the same one who had shown Eric the watch the previous day, began to cry. I'm so sorry, she sobbed, her makeup streaking down her cheeks. We made awful assumptions. We judged Mr. Jones unfairly. Another staff member, a young man with his hair slicked back, stepped forward. The arrogance he had displayed earlier had vanished, replaced by pure panic. Please, sir, he pleaded, we know we made a terrible mistake. We shouldn't have treated anyone that way, especially someone like Mr. Jones. William's eyes swept across the group, his disappointment palpable. Do you understand the gravity of your actions? William's voice rose slightly. Do you realize your behavior goes against everything this establishment is supposed to stand for? The employees nodded vigorously, their eyes wide with fear, knowing their careers and the store's reputation, built over years of serving high-end clients, were on the line. The manager spoke again, his voice shaking. Mr. Clark, Mr. Jones, we understand the seriousness of our actions. We didn't just fail as employees, we failed as human beings. We're prepared to face whatever consequences you deem necessary. Throughout the conversation, Eric's calm, unshakable demeanor remained, and he gently placed a hand on William's shoulder. William, he said softly, perhaps it would be best if we spoke with the manager privately. He turned to the manager, his eyes both kind and serious. Would that be all right with you? The manager nodded quickly, relief washing over his face. Of course, Mr. Jones. Please follow me to my office. As they walked toward the back of the store, Eric could feel the eyes of the other employees on them, the tension thick in the air. Yet, Eric's composure seemed to have a calming effect on everyone. Once inside the manager's office, Eric sat across from the desk while William stood near the door, arms crossed, still visibly upset. The manager sat behind his desk, his hands tightly clasped in front of him. Eric leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. I want you to understand something, he began. What happened yesterday wasn't just about me. It's about a much larger problem that affects people every day. The manager nodded, his eyes downcast. Eric continued, when you judge someone based on their appearance, you're not just hurting that person. You're damaging your business, your reputation, and yourself. William, still fuming, began to soften as he listened to Eric's words. Think about it, Eric said, his tone taking on a more instructive quality. How many potential customers have you turned away because of quick judgments? How many sales have you lost because someone didn't feel welcome in your store? The manager's face paled as the realization dawned on him. Eric pressed on, Respect isn't something you reserve for certain people. It's something you give to everyone who walks through that door. It's not just good ethics, it's good business. The store manager, his face marked with remorse, leaned forward in his chair. Mr. Jones, Mr. Clark, he began, his voice trembling slightly, I can't express how deeply I regret what happened yesterday. It's unforgivable and I take full responsibility for my team's actions. Eric nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the manager. The room fell into a heavy silence, the weight of the situation hanging in the air. The manager, speaking quickly now, continued, I want to make this right. Please, Mr. Jones, allow me to offer you any luxury watch of your choice, free of charge. It's the least we can do to begin to make amends. William raised his eyebrows at the offer, but Eric remained calm, his expression thoughtful. The manager pulled a catalog of their most expensive watches from his desk and slid it across the table toward Eric. Please pick whichever one you want, he said. Any watch you choose is yours. I know this doesn't erase what happened, but I hope it shows how serious we are about making things right. Eric glanced at the catalog but didn't touch it. Instead, he looked at William, then back at the manager. That's a generous offer, Eric said slowly, but I'm not sure that's the best solution here. The manager's hopeful expression faltered, confusion and concern replacing it. He had assumed the offer would smooth things over, but Eric's response made him realize there was more to address. Leaning back in his chair, Eric clasped his hands in his lap. You see, he began, his voice gentle yet resolute, this isn't about getting a free watch. It's about something much more important. The manager listened intently, hanging on Eric's every word, sensing he was about to impart wisdom. Eric took a deep breath, his eyes filled with compassion as he spoke. I appreciate your offer, but I have to decline, he said softly. This situation calls for a different kind of resolution. The manager's brow furrowed in confusion, but he remained silent, eager to hear what Eric had in mind. Instead of giving me a free watch, Eric continued, his voice both firm and warm, I propose that your store donates a significant portion of its profits to the charity auction I'm involved with. That would make a real difference in our community. William nodded in approval, a small smile playing on his lips. The manager's eyes widened, surprised by the unexpected suggestion. Eric leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. Furthermore, I believe your store could benefit from participating in community outreach programs. These programs could address inequality and discrimination, helping to prevent situations like the one that happened yesterday. The manager listened carefully, his expression shifting from surprise to thoughtful consideration. Eric's words seemed to resonate deeply with him. By engaging with the community, Eric explained, his voice warm and encouraging, you won't just improve your store's image, you'll create a more inclusive environment for all your customers. It's an opportunity to make a lasting positive change. William agreed, his voice filled with admiration for his friend. Eric's right. This could be a turning point for your business, a chance to set an example for others in the industry. The manager nodded slowly, a look of understanding dawning on his face. Mr. Jones, he said, his voice shaking slightly, your suggestion it's more than generous. It's wise and forward-thinking. I can see why you're such a respected figure in our community. Eric smiled, his eyes shining with warmth. Thank you. I believe that when we face challenges, we have an opportunity to grow and make things better for everyone. The manager straightened in his chair, a new sense of purpose evident in his posture. I wholeheartedly agree with your proposal, Mr. Jones. We'll make the donation to your charity auction, and I'd be honored if you could help guide us in creating our community outreach programs. Eric nodded, pleased with the outcome. I'd be more than happy to help. Together, we can turn this unfortunate incident into a catalyst for positive change. William Clark stepped forward, his eyes locked on the store manager with unwavering intensity. His voice carried a weight of authority as he spoke. I want to make something absolutely clear. Eric's suggestion isn't just a good idea, it's essential. The manager shifted uncomfortably in his seat, feeling the gravity of William's words. William continued, his tone firm but not unkind. Our future business relationship with this store depends entirely on your commitment to these initiatives. This isn't just about making amends, it's about creating lasting change. Eric watched his friend with a mixture of gratitude and admiration. William's support had been unwavering, and Eric was deeply touched by how seriously he took the matter. William's gaze softened as he looked at Eric. You see, he explained, I hold Eric's opinion in the highest regard. His wisdom and integrity have guided me for years, both in business and in life. When he speaks, I listen and I suggest you do the same. The manager nodded vigorously, his eyes darting between Eric and William. Of course, Mr. Clark. We take Mr. Jones's suggestions very seriously. We are committed to implementing these changes and improving our practices. William's smile held a steely edge. I'm glad to hear that because I can assure you, the influence Eric and I wield in this community is significant. Your store's reputation and future success will hinge on how you handle this situation moving forward. Eric placed a gentle hand on William's arm, a silent gesture of gratitude for his friend's unwavering support. The two men exchanged a meaningful glance, years of friendship and mutual respect shining through in that brief moment. The manager, witnessing this exchange, seemed to grasp the full gravity of the situation. He straightened his posture and addressed the two men with renewed determination. Gentlemen, you have my word that we will implement these changes immediately. Mr. Jones, we would be honored to have your guidance in our community outreach efforts. The store manager took a deep breath, his eyes reflecting a blend of remorse and resolve. Mr. Jones, Mr. Clark, I want to thank you both for this opportunity. We accept your terms wholeheartedly. This isn't just about making amends, it's about transforming the entire culture of our store. Eric nodded, a gentle smile spreading across his face. That's exactly what I hope to hear. Change begins with acknowledgement and the willingness to do better. The manager turned to his nearby employees, their faces a mix of shame and uncertainty. Listen up, everyone. What happened here is unacceptable, but it is also an opportunity for growth. From now on, we will treat every customer with the same respect and dignity, regardless of their appearance or what they're wearing. The employees shifted uncomfortably, but there was a growing awareness in their eyes. One of them, a young woman who had been particularly disdainful toward Eric the day before, stepped forward. Her voice trembled slightly as she spoke. Mr. Jones, I am truly sorry for the way I treated you. I never considered the person behind the appearance. I feel ashamed but also grateful for this wake-up call. Eric's eyes softened as he looked at the young woman. Thank you for your apology. It takes courage to admit when we are wrong. The important thing now is to learn from this experience and do better moving forward. William nodded in agreement. That's right. This is a chance for all of you to grow, both personally and professionally. Treat every person who walks through that door as if they could be the next Eric Jones because they might be. The manager clapped his hands, a new energy in his voice. All right, team, let's start brainstorming ideas for our community outreach program. Mr. Jones, would you be willing to guide us through this process? Eric smiled warmly. I'd be happy to. Let's schedule a meeting for next week to discuss the details. In the meantime, I encourage all of you to reflect on this experience and think about how you can bring more kindness and respect into your interactions with others. As Eric and William prepared to leave, there was a palpable shift in the store's atmosphere. The employees, though still shaken, stood a little taller, their eyes reflecting a newfound understanding of the valuable lessons in humility and respect. The following week, Eric returned to the store, his steps measured and determined. The atmosphere had visibly changed. The air of elitism had been replaced by a genuine warmth that seemed to emanate from every corner. The young woman who had apologized to him last time approached with a gentle smile. Welcome back, Mr. Jones. How can I assist you today? Eric nodded appreciatively. I'd like to see the watch I was interested in before, please. Of course, sir. Right this way, she responded, leading him to the display case while carefully removing the watch. Eric noticed her hands trembling slightly, but her voice was steady and respectful as she described the watch's features. He listened attentively, not just to her words but to the sincerity in her tone. He could see the effort she was making to treat him, and by extension all customers, with genuine respect. I'll take it, Eric said with a smile as the young woman processed the purchase. Looking around the store, he noticed new posters announcing the upcoming charity auction and community outreach programs. The other employees moved with a renewed sense of purpose, treating each customer with equal attention and care. When the transaction was complete, the young woman handed Eric the beautifully wrapped package. Mr. Jones, I want to thank you again. Your lesson has changed more than just our store's policies. It has changed us, the manager said earnestly. Eric felt a warmth spreading through his chest as he looked at the package in his hands. He knew that this watch now represented much more than just a luxury item or even a gift for his grandson. It symbolized a profound change, a genuinely significant transformation. Thank you, Eric responded, his voice thick with emotion. Remember, every person who walks through that door has worth. Treat them with kindness and respect, and you'll never go wrong. As Eric left the store, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The watch in his hands was more than just a timepiece. It was a testament to the power of dignity, respect, and the potential for positive change, even in the most unexpected places. The night of the charity auction arrived, brimming with anticipation and excitement. The grand ballroom glittered with elegant decorations, and the air buzzed with the chatter of attendees dressed in their finest. Eric and William Clark stood near the entrance, greeting guests as they arrived. Eric, in his sleek black suit, proudly wore the new watch on his wrist, a symbol of the change he had inspired. "It's quite a turnout," William remarked, his eyes scanning the growing crowd. Eric nodded, a satisfied smile tugging at his lips. "It's heartening to see so many people coming together for a good cause." As the auction began, the energy in the room surged. The auctioneer's voice rang out, describing each item with fervor. When it was time for the luxury watches donated by the store, the bidding frenzy reached new heights. Eric watched with pride as paddle after paddle flew into the air, bids escalating higher and higher. He noticed the store manager across the room, giving him a respectful nod. "Look at this," William whispered, leaning closer to Eric. "Your actions have sparked something truly remarkable here." When the final gavel came down on the last watch, a thunderous applause filled the room. The store's contribution far exceeded expectations, raising an unprecedented total for the night. Later, as Eric and William mingled with the guests, snippets of conversations reached their ears about the positive changes happening in the community. People spoke of new educational programs, improved healthcare services, and renovated community centers, all made possible by the funds raised that night. A young woman approached Eric, her eyes shining with gratitude. "Mr. Jones, I just wanted to thank you. The scholarship fund from this auction will help me go to college next year," she said. Eric felt a lump form in his throat. He placed a gentle hand on the young woman's shoulder. "It's people like you with dreams and determination that make all of this worthwhile." As the evening wore on, Eric and William stood together, surveying the room filled with joy and hope. The success of the auction was evident not just in the funds raised, but in the palpable sense of community and purpose that filled the air. "We did good, my friend," William said, giving Eric a hearty pat on the back. Eric nodded, his heart full. "Yes, we did. And this is just the beginning." As the auction drew to a close, William Clark took to the podium, lightly tapping the microphone to gain everyone's attention. The room fell silent, all eyes turning toward him. "Ladies and gentlemen," William began, his voice resonating through the ballroom, "I would like to take a moment to honor someone very special. A man who turned a negative experience into a force for good. Please join me in welcoming to the stage my dear friend, Eric Jones." The crowd erupted into applause as Eric made his way to the stage, walking with quiet dignity, his new watch gleaming under the lights. When he reached the podium, William gave him a warm hug before stepping aside. Eric looked out at the sea of faces, taking a deep breath before speaking. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began, his voice steady and warm. "I'd like to share a story with you if I may." He recounted the incident at the watch store, describing the discrimination he faced with honesty but without bitterness. The audience listened attentively, many nodding in disbelief and sympathy. "But you see," Eric continued, his eyes shining, "that moment of injustice became an opportunity to change things. It reminded me of the importance of kindness and respect, regardless of appearances." He went on to explain how he and William worked with the store to transform its practices and contribute to the community. "This auction, and the good it will do, is proof that second chances can lead to wonderful things," Eric said, gesturing to the room around him. The audience responded with heartfelt applause, moved by Eric's story and the tangible impact of the night's events. The audience erupted into applause once again. Many people stood up, their hands clapping with enthusiasm. Eric raised his own hands, encouraging them to calm down. "Let this be a reminder for all of us," he said, his voice quivering with emotion. "Every interaction is a chance to show kindness. Each mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow, and each of us has the power to turn a negative experience into something positive." As Eric finished speaking, the applause grew even louder. People stood, clapping and wiping tears from their eyes. The room was filled with a palpable sense of inspiration and hope, all stirred by Eric's words and actions. As the applause for Eric's speech began to fade, William Clark stepped forward, placing a hand on Eric's shoulder. The gesture was filled with warmth and respect, catching Eric off guard. "If I may," William said, his voice thick with emotion, "I'd like to add something." Eric nodded, stepping aside to allow his friend to take the spotlight. William turned to face the audience, his eyes gleaming. "What Eric hasn't mentioned is the profound impact he's had on my life. You see, the man standing next to me isn't just my friend. He's my mentor, my inspiration." A hush fell over the crowd as William continued with heartfelt sincerity. "Years ago, when I was just starting out, Eric took me under his wing. He taught me about business, yes, but more importantly, he showed me what it means to be a good person." William's gaze swept over the audience, making eye contact with several attendees. "Eric taught me that true success isn't measured by the money in your bank account or the watch on your wrist. It's measured by the lives you touch, the kindness you show, and the positive change you bring to the world." Tears glistened in the eyes of many in the audience as William spoke. Even Eric, usually so composed, found himself blinking back tears. "Everything I've achieved," William said, gesturing to the charity auction around them, "is because of the values Eric instilled in me. His wisdom, his integrity, his unwavering commitment to doing what's right. These are the qualities that make him not just a successful businessman, but a truly extraordinary human being." William turned to Eric, grasping his hand firmly. "Eric, my friend, my mentor, thank you. Thank you for showing us all what it means to lead with compassion and to turn adversity into opportunity." The crowd erupted into applause once more, their enthusiasm even greater than before. People stood, cheering and clapping, moved by the profound bond of respect between the two men. As the applause continued, the auctioneer stepped forward, his voice brimming with excitement. "Ladies and gentlemen, inspired by this incredible display of friendship and mentorship, we have several new donations coming in over the next few weeks." In the weeks following the charity auction, the luxury watch store underwent a remarkable transformation. Once an exclusive establishment, it became a beacon of positive change in the community, embracing its new role with enthusiasm and dedication. The store manager, deeply moved by Eric's forgiveness and wisdom, took the lead in implementing new policies. He organized sensitivity training for all employees, ensuring they understood the importance of treating every customer with respect and dignity, regardless of their appearance or perceived wealth. The staff, still shaken by their previous behavior, threw themselves into community outreach programs. They volunteered at local shelters, mentored underprivileged youth, and participated in job fairs to help those seeking employment in retail. A particularly touching initiative involved partnering with a nearby school in a low-income neighborhood. The store employees made regular visits, teaching students about time management and the value of punctuality, lessons that extended far beyond the world of luxury watches. As word spread about the store's transformation, it began to attract a more diverse clientele. People from all walks of life felt welcomed and respected, creating a vibrant atmosphere far removed from its former elitist environment. The store's commitment to charitable causes did not go unnoticed. Local media highlighted the story, praising the establishment for its dedication to social responsibility. This positive publicity not only enhanced the store's image but also inspired other businesses in the area to follow suit. Eric and William made occasional visits to the store, always welcomed with genuine smiles and respect. They observed with pride as employees, once critical and arrogant, now embodied the values of kindness and equality. On one such visit, Eric overheard a young staff member patiently explaining the intricacies of a watch mechanism to an elderly customer who clearly couldn't afford the watch. The staff's genuine interest in sharing knowledge without any expectation of a sale brought a warm smile to Eric's face. On a sweltering Saturday afternoon, Eric invited Marcus over for a special lunch. The sun streamed through the windows of Eric's cozy living room, casting a golden glow on the carefully wrapped gift box resting on the coffee table. When Marcus arrived, his face lit up with a beaming smile. "Grandpa," he exclaimed, enveloping Eric in a tight hug. Eric's eyes sparkled with pride and love. "Marcus, I have something special for you," Eric said as they settled into the comfortable armchairs. He picked up the box, holding it reverently. "I'm so proud of you for getting into that Ivy League school. You've worked hard and you deserve this." Marcus's eyes widened as Eric handed him the box. With trembling fingers, he carefully unwrapped it to reveal the exquisite watch nestled inside. "Grandpa, it's beautiful," he whispered, his voice brimming with emotion. Eric smiled gently. "It's more than just a watch, Marcus. It comes with a story, a lesson about life, respect, and the power of forgiveness." As Marcus listened intently, Eric recounted the events at the watch store, from the initial discrimination he faced to the transformative impact his response had on the business and the community. Tears welled up in Marcus's eyes as he absorbed his grandfather's words. "Grandpa, I can't believe you went through all that. How did you stay so calm and kind?" Eric placed a gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "It wasn't easy, son. But I learned that responding to hatred with more hatred only breeds more darkness. By choosing kindness and understanding, we can light the way for others." Marcus nodded, tracing his fingers over the smooth surface of the watch. I promise, Grandpa, I'll always remember this. I'll wear this watch not just as a reminder of time but as a reminder of the values you've taught me, humility, respect, and the power of second chances. Eric felt a surge of emotion swell in his chest. That's all I could ask for. Marcus, remember, true wealth isn't found in material things, but in the lives we touch and the positive changes we make in the world. Marcus carefully placed the watch on his wrist, its weight a comforting reminder of his grandfather's wisdom. He looked at Eric, his eyes shining with determination and love. I swear I'll uphold these values, Grandpa. I'll make you proud. Eric pulled his grandson into a warm embrace, his heart brimming with joy and hope for the future. In that moment, he knew that the true gift wasn't the watch itself but the legacy of compassion and integrity that would live on through Marcus. In the weeks following the incident, the store manager, Mr. Thompson, was deeply moved by Eric's graceful response. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was an opportunity for genuine change, not just in the store but in his own life as well. One morning, Mr. Thompson called a staff meeting. The employees gathered nervously, still shaken by the recent events. Mr. Thompson cleared his throat and began, "What happened with Mr. Jones was unacceptable, but it also showed us that we have a chance to be better." He unveiled a new set of policies designed to ensure that every customer was treated with respect, regardless of their appearance or perceived wealth. From now on, he announced, we'll measure our success not just by our sales, but by how we make people feel when they walk through our doors. The employees listened attentively as Mr. Thompson outlined the changes. There would be regular diversity and inclusion training sessions led by experts, and customer service would be evaluated based on kindness and respect, not just sales figures. As the days went by, the store began to transform. Signs were posted reminding the team and customers of the importance of respect. Initially hesitant, the staff gradually embraced the new approach. Sarah, one of the employees who had been particularly rude to Eric, found herself changed by the experience. During a training session, she tearfully shared, I never realized how much harm my assumptions could cause. I'm learning to truly see people, not just judge them. The store's atmosphere visibly shifted. Customers from all walks of life were met with genuine warmth and respect. The staff felt more fulfilled in their work, taking pride in creating a welcoming environment for everyone. Mr. Thompson reached out to Eric, inviting him to visit the store again. When Eric arrived, he was touched by the visible changes. The same employees who had once dismissed him now greeted him with sincere smiles and apologies as he browsed the displays. Eric overheard an employee patiently explaining the features of a watch to an elderly woman in worn clothing. The genuine kindness in the interaction brought a smile to Eric's face, reaffirming the power of positive change. As Eric wandered through the transformed store, an overwhelming wave of emotion washed over him. He took in the bustling activity around him, marveling at the positive changes that had unfolded in just a few weeks. What had once been an intimidating atmosphere had been replaced by a welcoming and warm environment, where people from all walks of life gathered side by side. Eric's gaze settled on Sarah, the employee who had been particularly disdainful during his initial visit. She was now assisting a young black customer with the same patience and attentiveness she had previously lacked. Her genuine smile and considerate manner were in stark contrast to her former behavior. This sight filled Eric with a profound sense of pride and hope. He recalled that difficult day, the sting of prejudice, and the weight of disappointment he had felt. Yet, reflecting on the journey since then, Eric realized that what could have been a moment of bitterness had become a catalyst for significant change. The store's transformation went beyond superficial improvements. Eric could see it in the way the staff interacted, in the diverse clientele who now felt comfortable browsing luxury items, and in the community outreach programs advertised on posters near the entrance. As he walked through the store, snippets of conversations among employees caught his attention. They discussed upcoming diversity training sessions and praised the inclusive atmosphere. Each interaction underscored the impact of his decision to address discrimination with grace and wisdom. Eric's heart swelled with contentment. He had always believed in the power of education and second chances, and here was living proof of those principles in action. The store had become more than a place to buy luxury watches. It was now a beacon of respect and understanding within the community. As word spread about the store's transformation and its commitment to equality, its reputation grew. People from all walks of life began to visit, eager to see the changes for themselves. The store, once known for its exclusivity, was now celebrated for its inclusivity. Sarah, who had once treated Eric with disdain, found herself at the heart of this positive change. She took pride in sharing the store's new initiatives with customers, her eyes shining as she spoke about the community outreach programs. "We're not just selling watches anymore," Sarah told a customer one day. "We're building bridges and making a difference." Sales began to rise steadily. Customers who had once felt unwelcome returned, bringing friends and family with them. The diverse clientele created a vibrant atmosphere that was palpable to anyone who entered. Eric visited the store regularly, watching with satisfaction as the changes he had inspired took root. He observed the staff, noting their newfound sense of purpose and their genuine warm interactions with customers, regardless of appearance or perceived wealth. During one of Eric's visits, the store manager, Tom, approached him with a voice full of gratitude. "Mr. Jones," Tom said, "I can't thank you enough for giving us this chance to change. Our sales have increased, but more importantly, our team takes pride in the work we're doing." Eric smiled, touched by Tom's sincerity. "It's not about the sales, Tom. It's about creating a place where everyone feels valued." As weeks passed, the store became a model for other businesses in the area. They hosted community events, partnered with local charities, and continued to prioritize diversity and inclusion in their hiring practices. Employees, once driven only by commissions and status, now found a deeper sense of fulfillment in their work. They took pride in championing positive change, sharing their experiences with customers, and encouraging other businesses to follow suit. As the sun set on a warm evening, the community center buzzed with excitement. People from all walks of life gathered for a special event celebrating local businesses that had made significant contributions to charity and efforts to address inequality. The once exclusive watch store stood out among the honorees, its transformation a beacon of hope for positive change. Eric and William Clark arrived together, their presence drawing admiring glances and warm smiles from attendees. They wove their way through the crowd, pausing to chat with community members and other philanthropists. The mayor took the podium, her voice filled with pride as she addressed the gathering. "Tonight, we recognize those who have worked tirelessly to make our community a better place. Among them is a business that has shown us the true meaning of transformation and inclusion." As the mayor spoke about the journey of the watch store, Eric was overcome by a wave of emotion. He reflected on that fateful day at the store, where the sting of discrimination was still vivid in his memory. Yet, that pain had been transformed into something beautiful and meaningful. William Clark placed a reassuring hand on Eric's shoulder, his gesture one of support and admiration. "You did this, my friend," he whispered. "Your wisdom and grace turned a moment of injustice into a catalyst for change." The store manager and several employees took the stage to accept the award. Their faces shone with pride as they spoke about their community initiatives and the lessons they had learned. They turned to Eric, acknowledging him as the inspiration behind their transformation. As applause filled the room, Eric felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew that his actions had sparked a chain reaction of kindness and understanding that would continue to ripple through the community. Looking out at the diverse crowd, Eric saw a future brimming with hope. He envisioned a community where people were judged not by their appearance but by the content of their character. He saw businesses embracing their role in creating a more just society. His heart swelled with joy as he realized that true wealth was not measured in dollars or luxury items, but in the positive impact one could have on others, in the bridges built between people and the lessons learned and shared. In that moment, Eric understood that the real treasure lay in the change he had helped ignite, in the community's embrace of inclusivity, and in the profound connections that had been forged. If you enjoyed this story, leave a comment below, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. See you in the next video.